Pardon me, that's approved.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It is great to have everyone here today. I have as my special guest today, Damien, the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad. Hello, Damien.
Bonjour. Hello, everyone. How are you?
And co-hosting with me, I have Kitty the Atheist. Hello, Kitty.
Hey, everyone.
Yay.
Kitty, let's start out by talking about your name. What is that is after your name there?
It is actually essentially Slava Ukrainia, which is like glory to Ukraine. It was a phrase that was banned when the Soviet Union actually controlled Ukraine, and so it's fitting to have that now because fuck Putin. Like his small PP energy is going to destroy the world.
Okay, very good. And hello to everyone in the chat. Right now I see Ox, Junie, Claire, and Maya. Thank you all for joining us. And now, Damien, I first met you just a couple months ago, and
Yes.
I thought you sounded like you had a very interesting story, so I wanted you to come on and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for this. So what should I call you, by the way? Gran?
You are welcome to
Gigi?
call me either Gigi or Granny or Kelly, whichever you prefer. Kelly is my
Okay,
name.
I'll call you Gran. Just
Okay.
as both my grandmothers are no longer with me, and I need a grandma figure in my life.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I would
Same
love to be
thing.
your
I
adopted grandma.
adopted her as my grandmother too, because both of my grandmothers have passed. So
Cool, but
she's my new.
my grandmothers gave me like a weekly allowance, pocket money. So are you okay with that?
Yes, and I will send it to you telepathically.
Send in Bitcoin. I prefer Bitcoin. That's all the rage. No, what would you like to know?
Well, let's start with have you always been an atheist? And if not, how did you become an atheist?
No, very good question. I've only been what I would say an out and out atheist for probably the last probably 5 or 6 years. Before that, I was a bit of a closet atheist, going to church, saying and doing the things, trying not to sing the songs, that kind of stuff. But in that time, I was questioning, like, I suppose trying to find the answer for myself without anybody knowing, is the best way. The best way of looking at it. Before that, I'll describe myself as a fundamentalist in some aspects. So I spent about, gee whiz, I probably spent about 8 or 9 years in what I would call a fundamentalist cult. Now, they weren't, I say cult just in that they tried to influence what you thought, how you felt, how you interacted with people, stuff like that. And unfortunately, there was a little bit of manipulation as well in that aspect. So I spent about close to 10 years in that environment. I have also been part of Lutheran churches, Baptist churches, and I don't know if you guys got over there, Church of Christ as well. So I was basically a teenage convert. Mr. Bear, who is Mr. Bear?
Actually, I was thinking the exact same thing while you were backstage, and I didn't get a chance to say it, but I thought, boy, you sure sound like Mr. Bear. He is an atheist content creator in Australia.
Another one.
Yes, he's a little bit difficult to find because Mr. Bear, when you just Google that, tends to bring up a lot of different things.
Yes.
But yeah, he is a lot of fun. I really like Mr. Bear. And yes, you
Okay,
sound
cool.
a lot like Mr. Bear.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll take that as a compliment. So I was a teenage convert. I I can tell you about the basic story was one time the Gideon Society came to my high school, and they gave out these little green pocket New Testament plus Psalms. So from there, it kind of, as a 14-year-old kid, it kind of sparked my interest in I suppose, Christianity and spirituality, and like, there was a church literally, almost literally in my backyard. I grew up like very close to a church, and in my day, chaplains were like allowed or seen as a positive thing. So had that. So I've always had that cultural exposure to Christianity. But I think what set it off one night was, unfortunately, how can I say, my parents got into like a really, really big fight. And in this particular time, usually by about, let's say, late in the night, the fighting would die down. And unfortunately, it did get physical sometimes, and quite heated and all that. And as a 14, 15-year-old boy, you know, you're kind of scared shitless, or you don't know what to do. And so this particular morning, I think it was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I had literally, so at the back of this pocket Bible, for want of a better word, there was a thing in the back where you could sign your name to receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior. So I cut a deal with God. I said, God, if you are there, stop my parents fighting, and I'll sign my name in the back of the book. And what do you know? 5 seconds later, it stopped. And I thought, a deal is a deal. And
you sold your soul to the devil,
or his subcontractor, whichever way you want to look at it. And so from that day, I didn't actually start going to church, but I thought if I'm going to be a Christian, I will have to start acting like one and behaving like one, and being the good little boy that I suppose the cultural interpretation of Christianity means you're supposed to be. So from there, I wasn't really that serious about my faith up until I got to university. Where a guy who I call Joel Osteen Light. If you saw my pastor and saw Joel Osteen, you go, oh my gosh, they look very, very similar. And he's basically as fundamentalist as Joel Osteen. And yeah, so he invited me to his university outreach group. You know, they have the weekly Christian club meetings, and came on from there. And I thought, well, look, these guys are serious about their faith. They're warm, they're friendly, they're inviting. And so I stuck with them for, in the movement for about 10 years or so. And then life changed and I moved churches. And but yeah, so that was my journey into fundamentalist Christianity.
Okay. And then what took you out?
Ooh, what took me out? Basically a mental health crisis.
Up until you said that, I was thinking your story and my story are very similar, but in that respect, they're totally opposite. But I'll get to that later. Let's tell your story first.
Sure, no worries. I suppose what had happened was at the time I had undiagnosed anxiety disorder, and I think one particular weekend, I just couldn't shake it. I fell into panic attacks. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, that kind of stuff. And I turned up to the office one morning and the HR lady says, Damien, what are you doing here? You look unwell. You shouldn't even be here. Go home, go see a doctor. And so the company actually then paid for a few sessions with a psychologist. And it was at that time that I don't know how to put it, but there's a particular feeling you get when you get a piece of news that shatters your world, and you don't know how to process things there on in. And it was when she told me that, I have something in between generalized anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder, that it was like, oh my God, it makes sense. This is like, it's like the key fits the hole. It's like, the square peg is in the square hole. It's, at that time, because my faith was still a big part of my life, I reasoned with myself that it wasn't so much my faith, but the way that I had applied my faith in my life. Because I was in my fundamentalist church, they taught that evil spirits were real and they were capable of manipulating both physical objects, electromagnetic radiation, as well as infecting your psyche, for want of a better word. And so things like, depression, anxiety, self-harming, schizophrenia, all this kind of stuff were ultimately attributed to Satan and his minions, for want of a better word. So I had that, I suppose, reluctance to seek professional psychological help because of the culture that I spent a lot of time in. But, when it came to the crunch, when I kind of had to, I wouldn't say have to keep my job, but in order to keep functioning as a human, so I went and saw a psych, and it was the best thing I ever did. So from there, I reasoned that it wasn't my faith; it was more the way I applied it. Then I realized that for the last 15, 20 years, I'd been living someone else's faith. Because in this fundamentalist church, they were kind of explicit about me, like training me up to be a pastor, training me up to be a man of God, training me up to, be God's man for my generation, kind of thing, like the Bible says about David. And so all the pressure, I think manipulation is an easy word, but maybe the manipulation, the way they maybe gaslight you as well and try change the way you see reality and add a spiritual dimension to things, I kind of realized that was damaging, because it was very hard to look at a situation for what it was, because in the back of your mind, you're computing, okay, what if Satan has... or what if Satan does this, or what if Satan has done that, or how will I, what if all my efforts are for naught and I'm cursed or something? That was very much along the lines of what I was taught, and so I kind of had to undo that. And in that I realized that I was living someone else's faith. So if I was going to be genuine about my faith, I had to rediscover my faith for myself. I had to go, look, God, if you are there, I want to know if you are genuinely there, and if the Bible is correct, and all that kind of stuff about what it says. I don't want to go off. I don't want to believe in God as a concept. I want to believe in God as a logical thing. I want to be able to speak to God and know God, sort of like in the same way I'm speaking to you two, in that you are real entities who can have back and forth conversations and all that kind of stuff. And it was then that I kind of realized, well, look, the godless hypothesis makes a lot more sense than the God hypothesis for a lot of things, whether it be biology, psychology, geology, astrology, zoology. If you think of an ology, there will be something that the God neutral hypothesis explains much more better and a lot more honestly than the Christian hypothesis. So I spent a lot of time. The first thing I had to do was actually start reading and listening to all the atheist literature I've denied myself. So I jumped into things like the Christopher Hitchens and the Atheist Experience and the Sam Harris and all these well-spoken, well thought out atheist figures who have some pretty strong arguments for God. And so kind of like, since I already knew one side of the equation, I now had to learn the other side of the equation. And I suppose what I found was that the atheists tended to answer the questions a lot more honestly than what the Christians did.
I'm going to stop you for just a moment because I want to acknowledge the super chat here. Thank you very much, Skid Scratcher, and I appreciate the fact that you are enjoying the show. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Real quick. Literally, you are the Aussie Seth Andrews. That's what it is.
Oh.
That voice. Aussie Seth Andrews.
Thank you. I would take that as a. I'll take that as a compliment. So I should say Seth Andrews is one of the other figures as well. His video, Christianity Made Me Talk Like an Idiot, was something that really helped change my view on things. So what was I going to say?
You just mentioned that all of the fields of science, all of them together, the neutral hypothesis was more accurate than the God hypothesis.
I knew I was going to say, so particularly along the lines of morality. What I found was that, let's say, when you come to things like the numerous genocides in the Bible, or the concept of slavery in the Bible, or the idea of the sexism in the Bible, where women are literally valued at half of that of men, in some passages. The Christian apologetic is that, well, God has his reasons, or God's ways are higher than our ways, or God doesn't do anything without a good reason, or in some cases the Amalekites deserve their genocide, or it's just stuff like that. Whereas, like, you and I and Kitty can just read that and go, well, hold on, that is clearly a genocide. I don't know why we can't see it for what it is. And I think that's one of the things that turned me towards atheism, was just the honesty of what they're looking at. Was, hold on, I read this book cover to cover at least twice, and why didn't I realize? And I think it's because, particularly in modern fundamentalism, God must win every argument. God must win every debate. And even if God doesn't win the debate right there, at least the person has heard magical words of truth, which will lead to their impending salvation. Glory to God, the seed has been planted, as they might say. And so, when I realized that a lot of apologetics comes along with that mentality that God has to win, no matter the cost to your integrity or intellectual honesty or anything like that. And that's kind of when I realized that particularly modern Christianity is very dishonest in how it presents itself. And that's and so then when I tried to answer, is God there, I had to ask myself the question, what is a God? And I realized that there is no answer to what is a God. What is a deity? How do we know independently, academically, that deities exist and that they do what their creditors follow them with? And what I tended to realize was that every answer was a fallacy. I prayed and something happened. Well, hold on, that's just what's it called?
Confirmation bias?
Sorry? Confirmation bias. After this, therefore, because of this. Reification. There's just a whole... But when you try answer the God question academically, you find that you don't even have a starting point. All God is a concept. And Christians have based their idea, like... The idea that the Bible is the authority in history, science, morality, philosophy, all based off of a concept. It's like, bro, think for yourself, kind of thing.
And so, Rosemary Colton, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that.
Hi, Rosemary. So that's... So from there, in that time I was at the time I was questioning. I was in a Baptist church, but in like a very moderate, inoffensive Baptist church. Definitely not a Southern Baptist. They were like the nicest guys ever. So I spent a couple of years just slowly, quietly, like not even my wife or kids knew. It was just something. I suppose what really helped was that I used to work as an IT field technician. So in the car, as I'm driving along, I can listen to the Atheist Experience or Seth Andrews or, a Christopher Hitchens debate or something, and that kind of helped there. And then eventually the cat came out of the bag and I had to say to I think my wife asked me one day. No, I'd started a YouTube channel, which I don't work on anymore. But I started a YouTube channel. And I posted a video on my Facebook, and then one of my wife's friends saw that and went back to my wife and said, "Hey, you know, what's all this about?" Mm-hmm. Look, you know, I have to come out. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. I'm not even sure Jesus existed. You know, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And how did your wife take that?
Not very well at the start, and amongst so it was a little bit awkward because my wife comes from a family of, my wife is, how can I say, so my wife is Asian, who are typically conservative, and then they were raised, like, they were Methodists, you know, going back a few generations, and Methodists being a little bit more conservative than most. And so the idea of someone, and the problem is I met my wife in the church, you know, and, you know, I swore I'd follow Jesus for the rest of my life and all that kind of stuff. So the idea that I've changed my mind really did set things back. For a while, my sisters-in-law didn't talk to me. All that kind of stuff. Religion. Well, religion is still a bit of a what do you call it? A bit of an off-topic. But now my wife accepts that I do have an atheism podcast and that I do talk to weird strangers on the internet, and sometimes even pleasant strangers as well. So now in my household, my atheism is sort of an accepted thing. You know, it's just I'm still a nice guy. I'm still I'll still look after their daughter, and you know, I still try to be a good dad and all that. It's just the only thing is I don't go to church. Mm-hmm. I have my Sunday mornings back to myself.
I find it mildly amusing that you consider Methodists to be some of the more conservative, because the churches that I went to considered the Methodists to be too liberal.
Really? Okay, you've never heard the old joke about why Methodists don't have sex standing up?
Actually, I heard that as Baptists.
Oh.
Because the Baptists
you mean the Christian denominations don't agree with each other on what they're, you know... Holy shit! That's the problem.
Writer for Life says being outed when you weren't expecting it sucks, and I'm one of those weird strangers.
Yes, Jax. Yes, Jax. Hello, Jax.
Pepsi in my nose. Like you made Pepsi come out my nose. Like that was unpleasant, you bastard.
Thank you.
And look at this super chat. It is for $6.66.
66 cents. That sounds like something Jax would do, but hey, Jaxie.
Thank you very much, Jax. I appreciate that.
Yes, I was going to say, so I suppose in Australia, we are probably a bit more liberal about how we practice Christianity. And so someone like the Methodists would be seen as more conservative. But don't think for a second that we don't have nutbags. We do have nutbags, and I was in with those nutbags for quite a while as well, to the point that I'm just trying to think. I had to write a sermon one day for my home church group, and I was going to use the material provided by one of these right-wing nutbag churches for my sermon. So that's how much and when the head pastor of this nutbag church shook my hand, I thought, "Whoa, this is I'm not washing this hand again," kind of thing. But yeah, so there are nutbags here in Australia, though nowhere near as much as what you got over there. The old saying,
we have a monopoly on nutbag religious organizations in this country.
Well, unfortunately, Australia and New Zealand, when the people get too nutty, they send them over here.
Yeah, sorry about
Hillsong.
that.
Is it Hillsong? Is that the name of that really prominent, like, anti-gay church?
I don't know if you'd call Hillsong anti-gay. They're probably more prosperity preacher church. But yes, they are very big.
Yeah.
And what you find in Australia is that most churches will sing Hillsong songs in the Sunday morning services. And I think they're great. I think they're great songwriters. It's just that their theology is very wishy-washy. And one of the upcoming episodes on the podcast is about how there's on 60 Minutes. We have our own version of 60 Minutes. There were a couple of women who came out and said that they were either groped or sexually assaulted by either senior Hillsong members or in church. And the response to those allegations is quite worrying. As you would expect a corporate church to try to do is to, like, deflect blame and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't strictly call them homophobic. Maybe they are, but not that they've. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I think that was the church that Elliot Page had spoken out against. That is one of the Chris's in Hollywood, like is a prominent member of a church, and I thought it was that one. I could be misremembering. Okay, but Elliot Page did this op-ed about like their support of like anti-LGBTQ stuff and like a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, they may like tacitly support, but yeah, anyway, look, if you can find a reference for me, I'll quickly check it out and see what they say. But just trying to think what I was going to say something, but I lost my train of thought. But yes, next question.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn us in a slightly different direction based on this comment from Lord Bryant, because it's something you alluded to and something I kind of wanted to allude to as well. And that is, Lord Bryant says, right now we're dealing with a Christian who claims that any Christian who does have a depression issue, that they're not a Christian.
Oh, yes.
And I have dealt with that myself, and not directly, but more indirectly, because I have been to churches that say that if you are not happy, there is something wrong with you. And, you need to have a smile on your face all the time. And that was one of the things that was a serious issue for me, was trying to pretend that I was happy when I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And that life was perfect when it wasn't, because that's what I was supposed to project. Now, the churches I went to didn't go that far. They did not say that if you have depression, that, that this is not a mental illness. But a lot of times they would want to look at first, is this a spiritual issue? And if they could not find a spiritual issue, then okay, this might be a medical issue, and they would refer you to it. But I did go to one Baptist church that was completely the opposite. They were extremely supportive of people with mental illness.
Okay. Wow.
So it runs the gamut.
It does. But the problem is that the more, in religion in general, the quiet, respectful Christians don't get much traction. It's the loud, obnoxious, in your face kind of churches that get all the publicity, they get all the coverage. Like if you go to almost anyone in America, you ask them, have you heard of the Westboro Baptist Church? Well, yes, but they're a church of 50 people. Whereas, some church in Little Rock, Arkansas, that does, quietly practices their faith might have like 500 people. But, yeah. Oh, Chris Pratt. Okay.
Yeah. And Lord Bryant followed that up with, I'm not going to lie, my church must be a diamond in the rough, but they accepted an LGBT kid just as he is. I was blown away. I'm not lying to you all. Evangelical one too. Yeah, and I have seen that. In fact, that was exactly the point of the church that I was going to, and why they found the local Methodist church too liberal, was because the Methodist church specifically had a Sunday school group that was LGBT friendly. Mm-hmm. And they called it the Leaven Group. And our church was ridiculing them, saying, the Bible says that the lump of leaven is a symbol of sin. So why is it that these Methodists don't realize how sinful they are by allowing this to be in their church? But that was the LGBT issue was the primary reason that a lot of the churches I went to saw the Methodists as being too liberal.
Okay, all right. I couldn't tell you offhand what Methodist doctrine is. I think it was just, one of the things that my wife and her family identified as. Yeah, it's and I suppose it's a bit like Baptist doctrine. Like, what is Baptist doctrine? You could go to, it's almost like there's dozens of definitions of Baptists.
Oh yes, they run
You
the
have,
gamut.
you go all the way to the Westboro Baptists, who are essentially Calvinists. You then go to my local Baptist church, who are the most inoffensive. Like, the pastor has tattoos, and he was saying how he converted the tattoo artist who gave him his tattoos. And yeah, there's stuff like that. And then you have like the independent fundamentalist Baptists, who are extremely King James Version only, and it's like they're a cult in themselves.
Have you heard of the new independent fundamentalist Baptist?
I have, yes, I have. I'm
Okay.
trying to work out how it's different to the independent fundamentalist Baptists, except it's even more homophobic.
Exactly. They are like the independent fundamentalist Baptists on steroids.
Yeah, steroids. Yes. But yeah, what that message from Lord Bryant just before, and what Jack's put up. So Lord Bryant was in a conversation I was in this morning. I think I actually quote tweeted the guy. There was a guy who I was dealing with, who said that he straight out said that any Christian who gets depression is not a true Christian. And then I replied back to him and said, "What's your primary source for that claim?" Myself and my family. And every time I see someone on Twitter complain about their mental health, guaranteed they're an atheist. Well, hold on. Doesn't that just mean that atheists are more honest about their mental health? No, something rather. But yeah, the whole idea that you're supposed to be strong and full of joy and too blessed to be stressed is another way of putting
positivity.
it. Yes,
they want
actually
you to have toxic positivity.
That is or you could say hyper emotionalism as well. But yeah, toxic positivity is a great way of putting it. And and like, if I had $1 for every time I heard "the joy of the Lord is my strength,"
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't need to work a job.
Same
but
for
you're
me
right.
for Jesus Heals, being a disabled person,
Yeah,
like getting accosted by random Christians. Like, have you heard the good news about Jesus? Loving Jesus, accepting him will heal you. It healed me. It's like, yeah, okay, buddy.
it made you feel better. That's all we can really say.
Okay, we have a good question here from Atheist God, who asked, does Australia have the same problem as the USA as to book banning and not teaching science that upsets the religious?
No, we don't. Australia is essentially a secular country, but that's a little bit weird in that. So I find the juxtaposition with America very weird in that in America you have it written into your constitution that like the church-state separation. You know, I don't know. It's not that explicitly written that in the Constitution,
Right.
but it is implied that there's a wall of separation between. Yet you guys have this weird mix of politics and religion, whereas in Australia, our head of state, Queen Elizabeth II, God bless the Queen, she literally runs her own church. The Anglican Church is headed by the current monarch. So when Queen Lizzie falls off the perch, someone else will take that spot. And so the head of state of Australia and of the entire Commonwealth realm has her own church. But in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, all these places, they're very secular societies. So we don't have that problem of book burning and trying to change the science curriculum. But I can tell you a story. There is a guy I know who I don't think he was successful. I don't know if he's actually gone ahead, but he made it almost his life's mission to sue the. So I live in the state of Victoria. He made it his life's mission to sue the Victorian State Education Department to have evolution removed from the science curriculum. He prepared this like 100 and something page document. It was called Evolution Clarified. And you can kind of guess how it went. And he had all these different, different topics, and like how it's. His most common phrase in this document is, How can X lead to molecules to man evolution, from bacteria to babies evolution? Yes, Kitty, that was my thoughts exactly. His common phrase is, I don't think so. Next line. So he was hoping to nail the Victorian state government with that to get evolution. And he even got a couple of professors at, secular universities to write in support. A couple of professors who actually are affiliated with either AIG or Creation Ministries International, to write letters of support to say, oh, this guy has all his facts straight. I support what he's doing, all this kind of stuff. But that does lead me onto my next topic, that the current government in Australia is trying to pass what's called the Religious Discrimination Act. And what it is that it's laws that are meant to protect you against discrimination, like from discrimination against you on the basis of your religious belief. One of the points of contention is how that relates to LGBT students or transgender students, particularly at religious schools, because religious schools have a thing where they don't really like LGBT students. And there is actually a section in the Sex Discrimination Act of Australia where religious schools do have the legal authority. I love Lord Bryant. He's a top bloke. So what was I saying before I was so rudely distracted? So the government is trying to put legislation in through Parliament that will protect you from discrimination against your religious beliefs. But the problem is it doesn't stop discrimination against you because of their religious beliefs. As in, like, if you are let's say you are a teacher at a school and you get divorced, it is a possibility that you could lose your job for being divorced. Or if you come out as gay, you could lose your job as a teacher at a religious school for being gay. All that kind of stuff. But no, to answer the question, no, we like anyone who would try to say we shouldn't teach evolution because of something rather, we just say go fuck yourself, for want of a better word. There's a saying that we have in Australia is that religion is like a penis. It's good that you have one, and if you're happy with it, keep it to yourself. You don't need to show anyone else, and please don't force it down our kids' throats.
I love that,
and that is
so much.
Sorry, Kitty?
No, I was saying I love that phrase so much because it is so just so
succinct. Good. Yes.
Now, isn't there something that your schools start the day with prayer or something like that? Or am I thinking? Okay, I'm thinking of England then.
No, yeah, probably England. I know back in the 60s and 70s there was a thing about starting. Actually, in religious schools, I think religious schools do.
Yeah, religious schools I can see. I was really asking about the public schools.
Yeah, public schools, no. There would be a big freak out about public schools introducing prayer. Even the concept of chaplains. The concept of chaplains at schools. Said I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and back then, it was cool. It was welcomed that a minister of one specific religion would have free access to the kids to help them with their problems and all that kind of stuff. Whereas now that is I think it is still in place, but it's not really. Yeah, I think they're more looking towards counsellors or like just people regardless of their religious affiliation.
Okay.
Is the way to put it.
So how did you get into podcasting?
How did I get in the podcast? Oh, okay. By accident.
Okay.
That's no. Look, I've tinkered around with online creation content for a while, and look, not that I proclaim to be any good at it whatsoever. It's just something I did for a hobby. Probably my first foray into online content creation was probably about, I reckon probably about 10, 15 years ago. I used to write a right-wing political blog. I used to be a conservative right-wing kind of, pretty much like Seth Andrews. To keep the analogy going, very much like, I would have been one of those Fox News Christians. But maybe the Australian version of a Fox News Christian. And, so I kind of realized that outrage generates clicks. But what I then found though was that to keep the clicks up, you have to keep on creating content. And it got to the stage where I'd watch the news or read a newspaper and go, look, and start to think, well, how can I spin this into a story? How can I make this a blog piece? I better check out my click counts for the day. And I kind of became an opinion machine rather than someone who's organically putting their thoughts out there. But so I deleted that, and obviously had a whole change of life from there. But I really like the idea I do like podcasts because it's a way of creating content, but you don't have to work with the visuals. Like I can't animate. And the best I can do is like a PowerPoint presentation. Hit the button, the next line comes across. Oh, I better talk about what's on that line. Press the button, the next line comes across. I better talk about what's on that line. Whereas I just find with podcasting, I don't need to look at a camera. I can sit in the comfort of my bedroom. I can sit in the comfort of my car. I can not worry about the visuals. I can just write a script. I can talk into a microphone. I can all this stuff. But no, I just wanted to how can I say, just like, I've always loved the idea of content creation, and I think we need more intellectual atheists out there. Because unfortunately, like, there are a lot of ratbags out there who just, hate on religion for the sake of hating on religion. Whereas, like, to me, I do try bridge that gap, and I think that's one of the ways that kind of got to me as well, was like listening to Seth Andrews. You couldn't call Seth Andrews anti-theist. Purple on silence. Another person I know. What was I going to say?
You were mentioning that Seth. Gosh, now I've lost the train as well.
Yeah, I know, it's getting late at night. I was going to say. So I just find that putting a friendly intellectual spin on it, like realizing that the person you're talking to is a person, and that's kind of why I portray myself as friendly, because I'm not here to slap you across the face. I'm not here to force my religion down your throat. I'm here to present a point, and if you accept it, you accept it. If you don't, then okay, that's cool. So on my podcast, I try and mix it up. On my latest episode, I just had a guy called Lewis Ungett, who's probably more of I suppose you could say he's a conservative / right-wing apologist. We were talking about the global flood, particularly the idea that the global flood was real because all these disparate cultures around the world have an historic memory of the global flood. And I discussed why I didn't think that was the case. But if you go listen to us, and it's a friendly chat. We do get stuck into each other a little bit, but then the last half of it, we talk about politics and corporate hypocrisy and stuff like that. On the next episode coming up, I begin my reading of Kent Hovind's PhD thesis.
Okay.
That old chestnut.
Hi, I'm Kent Hovind.
Yeah. When you're struggling for content, most atheists, when they're struggling, they'll go, Kent Hovind's PhD thesis, let's drag it out and give that a whirl. So yeah, I've got that coming up. Then coming up after that, there's a Twitter user by the handle of Internet Moses, whose big thing is memes. And he's a pretty friendly guy, and I love a good meme myself, and so we were discussing about that. And then probably the big one coming up in April is Deborah Grace from Crucifying the Bible. I had her on for about an hour or so, and we were chatting about all sorts of all sorts of stuff.
Purple asks, could it be because agricultural societies always start out on a floodplain?
Could well be. I do find the idea of that the global flood happened because of a disparate cultural memory to be weird, because then why isn't the naming of the animals part of this cultural memory? Why isn't the dispersion of people all over the world part of this cultural memory? Why isn't, the Exodus part of this cultural memory? Why there's so many more things? Like, aside from the lack of geological evidence, the lack of genetic evidence, the lack of, all this stuff, it's...
Well, it's because as they traveled, across the world during the dispersion, the further they traveled, the more memories that fell out of their heads. So the further away they got from the center of the story, the less of it they remembered.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I don't accept that for a second, Granny. It's a bit of a... look, the biggest question for me is, where did all the water go? That is because I sat down some time back and I worked some calculations out. If you had a flood 2 meters high, you would need I think like 720 times the amount of water currently on the Earth today to flood the Earth to 2 meters high. Whereas if you wanted to do a flood to the top of Mount Everest, which is I think 8.9 kilometers high, you needed like 3.2 million times the amount of water on Earth today to flood the Earth that high. So the question is, if there was a flood that needed almost 1,000 times the amount of water on Earth today, where did all the water go? Is it in outer space? Is it in, it can't be in the ground, because the ground is already part of the water, already all on the Earth. You need 1,000 times more than that to run a flood.
Nevermore says, sorry, I got thirsty.
Quite probable. Do gods get thirsty? This is weird. It's just weird how almost every deity has some sort of anthropomorphic aspect. Even the flying spaghetti monster, has a very anthropomorphic aspect to him.
That's because that's the lens that we view deities through. I mean, in effect, in a way, I'm a bit of a creationist in that I believe man created God, and we anthropomorphize things, because it makes it familiar, and
yes,
we want to see ourselves in that. Otherwise, it's uncanny valley shit, and that makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah. I see it as that people will appeal to the intangible to make sense of what they don't understand about the tangible. So, we had, floods and earthquakes and volcanoes and all this stuff that we didn't know how they operated. And so we made gods up for volcanoes. We made gods up for losing your car keys. We made gods up for, stuff like that. And then when we sent satellites into space, when we sent machines down under the Earth, we didn't find a heaven or a hell or celestial realms or stuff like that. We had to actually investigate for, and this is what I was saying before about the honesty, is that, you could send an atheist scientist up on a spaceship and they'll go, look how big this universe is. It clearly wasn't designed for us, but I'm going to appreciate it anyway. Whereas if you send a creationist scientist up on a spaceship, you'll go, this is only 6,000 years old. The heavens declare the glory of God. Even though this God didn't seem to know about Jupiter, which is like 300 times the size of Earth. All this stuff, or like, for example, the starlight problem. The creationists would come up with really weird solutions for the starlight problem and for like evolution and stuff like that. And it's just like, just be honest. You don't know. There was a guy who on one of my other podcasts, Wrestling with Atheism. If you check out Wrestling with Atheism, I had a guy called David B. Ramsey who wrote a book called Speaking of God, We Don't Know Shit. A former minister writes about his journey out of faith. And that sums it up nicely, is that, guys, speaking of God, we don't know shit. We can believe shit, but we don't know. Oh, the Australian Jesus. Yes, that guy. Probably, yes.
What's Rosemary talking about?
Okay, there is a guy in Queensland. Queensland is sort of like the Alabama of Australia.
Did you know that I live in Alabama?
Well, there you go. That's and I think Godless Engineer also lives in Alabama as well.
Yes, he does. He lives in the same city as I do.
Ooh, all right. That's freaky.
We're trying to turn Alabama atheist.
Sorry?
We're trying to turn Alabama atheist. I was thinking of starting a group called Alabama Atheists, but unfortunately the acronym AA has already been taken.
Oh, darn it. You'll make it like...
can Florida join? Like, we're Alabama light, especially with Ron DeSantis in charge.
Get Florida man to come over.
Mississippi is actually worse than Alabama.
Oh, okay. Okay. So Queensland is like the home of nutbag Australian Christianity. And there is a guy in Queensland who started his own cult. Literally, he has his own compound, and he brought all these adjoining properties to form a crucifix shape. It's actually really weird. But he calls himself the reincarnation of Jesus, and he talks about when I was a child, I can feel the nails in my hands with my disciples, and his wife is the reincarnation of Mary. And then he has a disciple who is the reincarnation of Peter. And yeah, so there is.
Tell me that he turns water into Bundaberg rum and he rides around on a drop bear.
I may worship him if he could do that. Yes, but the drop bears will get you. You are right. But yeah. So he actually did a sit down interview for a TV program called Sunday Night, and at the very start of the episode, he writes on a whiteboard, "I am Jesus. Deal with it." It's like, holy shit. And then they talk to his parents, and they talk about how he was schizophrenic, and he was afflicted with mental health problems all his adult life. Is probably the best way of putting it. But yes, the Australian Jesus
problem with religion, sorry, don't mean to interject here, is that it preys on the vulnerable, especially people. It preys on people with mental health issues, with disabilities, people that are at the worst point in their life. That's when people tend to find religion the most, if it's not from being indoctrinated from childhood. And it preys. That is my biggest issue with religion, is it preys on people when they're most vulnerable. I just wanted to say that.
No, but I kind of agree with you. And C.S. Lewis gets quoted a lot by Twitter Christians, and one of his most famous quotes is that God speaks through the pain. And it's like, well, why can't God just talk to me like I'm talking to you two? Why does God have to manipulate circumstances to cause me to suffer? All this kind of extravagant shit, when he could just knock on the door and say, look, I'm God, I'm here to help, we need to talk. Something like that. I don't quite get why God, even the idea of apologists and even the idea of ministers, at best, you're only getting God secondhand from that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's and so these people who say things like, no true Christian gets depression, or no true Christian, lies, or no true Christian, I think history has shown that when someone tries to define what a true Christian is, it always crashes and burns. But and that was one of the things that all right, there you go. Thank you very much, Atheist God. Yeah, that was again one of the things about honesty, is that from an atheist perspective, we are essentially alone in the world. The universe does not care about our existence. The Homo sapiens species could be wiped off the earth in a heartbeat tomorrow, and the universe will still keep on pumping out radiation into a cold vacuum till the end of time. But when you theologize it, when you theologize, you have to add all these layers on top of what would happen if God couldn't possibly let all the humans die, or it would be the end of, we would all go to the new heaven and the new earth, and where God will wipe away all your tears. And so why the fuck can't he do that on earth? Stuff.
My belief on it, based on the way that, the God of the Bible behaves, it reminds me of, abusive partner, an abusive spouse. As a domestic violence survivor, the whole, threat of punishment to get you to behave, and, promising good things, but being willing to take them away, carrot stick kind of thing,
Yes.
wanting essentially worship, even, through the pain, and bringing pain means love. It is very much like an abusive father or an abusive husband or spouse.
Spouse. Yes. But it's also the emotional self-flagellation that you have to perform as well. In that, I am unworthy, I am a sinner, I am, I am flawed, and it is only you, like capital Y, you, Lord, that can save me. And it's this. Yeah, I think flagellation is probably the best word. And and there's a verse in John where he says, he must increase and I must decrease. That's like, you can't call God a loving God who wants the best for humanity if the place he wants us to be is squished into our little ball, and, don't you dare talk back, don't you dare question, especially don't you dare question. Doubt is sin. Anything done from doubt is sin. Stuff like that. And that's, and you're right.
Worse than is blaspheming God, is not loving God enough. I think the only unforgivable sin is blaspheming God.
Correct. But the fact that no one can actually define what that really is, and the fact that no one could present an example of someone who has committed the unpardonable sin means, it's, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Okay, we
Kelly,
have
oh, yes.
The last comment, sure. We'll get to the question in a moment. It's all a test of faith, or how much you actually really love God. If you walk away from him on your lowest times, then you didn't really love him at all. I've heard this, and it doesn't even have to be the lowest time. No matter, even if you walk away from God at your best moment, I get that. I get accused of that frequently, that, well, you never really loved God at all. And that anyone who says that didn't know me. I mean, I spent 42 years, not just attending church, but I helped found a church. I created a church library from scratch. I taught Sunday school. I went on mission trips. The only thing I have not done is I have not pastored a church. And probably the only reason is because most of the churches I went to would not allow a female pastor. And some of the churches I went to did not even allow female Sunday school teachers, unless you were teaching children. You could teach children, but women cannot teach men.
And this is what I was talking about, the sexism, is that it is blatantly sexist to stop a person who is eminently capable of doing a job, but because you have breasts and a vagina. Actually, no, probably shouldn't. That's probably not correct. But because you're not a man, you are not allowed this job. Some churches, the Baptist church I was in, they reconciled that by saying that a woman can teach, but she still has to be under the authority of a man.
Yeah, because a woman cannot usurp authority over a man. Mm-hmm. I mean, even worse than that.
Sorry, Kid.
No, I was just gonna say, even worse than that was the fact that, sure, it's bad enough that women can't be leaders or teachers, but I think the worst would be Levitical law of if you didn't scream loud enough while being assaulted, then you'd be killed. If you were betrothed, you would be killed, and if you weren't, then you were forced to marry the person that assaulted you. And he wasn't allowed to divorce you, and he had to pay your father
for a monetary transaction. Don't forget, for a monetary transaction. So if you've got the cash, you can,
And the money didn't even go to her; it went to her dad.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And there is also the So the one about that kind of brings me on to the point about I forget where exactly it is in Leviticus, but the law where if a man finds his wife wasn't a virgin on their wedding night, she gets killed at her father's doorstep, or so if the man is wrong about the accusations, he might get beaten up and he has to pay a fine. Okay, but if the woman's sorry.
For property damage, basically.
Correct, property damage.
Destruction of property.
Whereas if the woman is in the wrong, she loses her life. And it's like, you can't say that it's a fair religion when there are different punishments based literally just on the gender. Because what if the man isn't a virgin? Like, why is there no test for virginity for a man?
Probably because it's impossible to tell.
Well,
although, even the test for a female is not necessarily accurate. But anyway, one thing I wanted to bring up is I once asked specifically in a church I was in of the pastor, why is it that women cannot teach? The answer that I got was, well, if we let women into places of authority, the men would all just sit back and let the women run the whole show. So we have to give the men the places of authority, otherwise they won't do anything.
Okay, that's...
It doesn't speak very well for the men.
No, that's...
At least he's honest that he utilizes weaponized incompetence, I mean...
But that is very dark on men, and it's just... Yeah, okay, that's... I have heard the common thing I get is it's not in God's design. And so then I ask, well, what happens if you go against God's design? Oh, people die in their sin. So you're saying that a woman would die if she spoke in a church? Like, just weird stuff like that. There was a question you had before, Gran.
Yeah, I was getting back to that. It's from Almost a Doctor. He asked... do you agree that if Australia, the threat of hell is used significantly less than the U.S.? From my experience, they tend to focus on being a good or bad person. That explains Ray Comfort. But anyway, go ahead. What's your answer? Please.
I am actually half New Zealand myself. And okay. every time someone says the Ray word, it's like, so I'm half Australian, so I'm ashamed of Ken Ham, and then I'm half New Zealand, so I'm ashamed of Ray Comfort. I just can't win. Like, we did give the world Russell Crowe and Steve Irwin, so hopefully that's kind of made up for, and the Hemsworths, so hopefully that's made up for our sins. But
and the best Joker.
Sorry.
And the best Joker.
Yes, that guy. Yes, I know who exactly you're talking about. No, anyone who threatens their kids with hell, or anyone with hell, there's almost a case for child abuse. We tend to take that kind of thing, very, like, there's even a pushback against the Jehovah's Witnesses, the idea of shunning. There's been a lot of criticism of the Jehovah's Witnesses because of the idea of shunning. If your kids do something wrong that goes against the church, then you're supposed to cut your kids out of your life until they repent. Like, that's what you do to a dog. Actually, you wouldn't even do that to a dog. And you're expected to do that to your children. And so a big fuck you goes out to the Jehovah's Witnesses for that. But yeah, so in Australia, religion is a tertiary issue, essentially. What we more care about is, can you take a joke? And especially in Australia, we, like, you're close to someone if you can call them like a dickhead or a bitch or an asshole or something, like some other rude word, kind of indicates that you have this familiarity with your friend. Or with your friends, and even like in marriages,
they're assholes. Like, they're cruel to each other, but that's how you know
yes.
you.
Exactly. If an Australian doesn't call you a dickhead at some stage, you're not their friend. Is the short answer. So yeah. So what was I say? So religion. So probably the first thing is, can you have a joke? Are you like a decent person? Second thing would be your sporting team. Because one of the things that you get asked is what sporting teams you follow. And I live in Melbourne, which is the sporting capital of Australia, and no one should argue with that. It's like, I'm sure Mr. Bear, who I may or may not be, would confirm that. But yeah, you get asked, where are you from? Where's your accent from? You have a weird accent. What team do you follow? And the correct answer is anything but Collingwood, for any Australians out there who will get that joke. But then what... Sorry?
Is none acceptable? I don't do sports. I've never, even here in the States.
Yes.
Although, to be fair, I will say American football is rugby for pussies.
That's... Oh, boy. No, you can have none, but you're just like, okay, what planet did you come from? But no, we will still love you anyway. I said, as long as you fit the top criteria is, can you have a laugh? Like, do you know your shit? Do you know, are you, yeah. Oh.
There's going to be Aussie throwdown in this.
Yes, Matt is from Australia.
Oh, well, what wrong part of Australia is she from?
I don't know what part he's from. Matt, we're in Australia.
Sorry.
Where are
well,
you
if
from?
he's not from Melbourne, then he's not. Yeah, doesn't matter really. It is a bit of an Australian throwdown. But yes, but you could say you're a Christian, but as long as you're not one of these guys who has to, how can I say, like, spiritualize everything. Then that's okay. You can be Muslim, you can be, Buddhist, you can be, I think the ultimate thing is, as long as you're a top bloke and you treat people with a level of respect, that's really the thing.
One question that I have been dying to ask you. Since you are the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad, how tall are you?
If you check out my personal Twitter account, at TFA Dad, it has the answer right there. Taller than the average bear.
Ah, okay. So
Yes.
you're taller than Mr. Bear. Okay.
No, the average bear. Well, if Mr. Bear is an average bear, then it's quite likely I'm tall. It's quite like I'm taller than him. No, in the proper measurements, I'm 194 centimeters, which is about 6'4".
Okay. I am
is,
vertically challenged.
Oh, that's what but most cuddly grands are, and that's like you'll be perfect for, like, you'll be my perfect grand because I could, like, squeeze you and hug you and.
Yes.
Oh, Sydney.
And love him and squeeze him and call him George.
Call him George. Yes, Sydney.
I love mice and men. So sad, though.
Purple says Mr. Bear is not average.
Neither is Mount Bear.
Mr. Bear always appears by avatar, so we do not know how big he is.
Oh, okay. That's I'll have to check out this Mr. Bear at some stage if I can find him. I may be finding myself.
I am 5'1".
Oh, okay. So
I'm 5'6".
hey, there you go. That's no, my mother-in-law is only about 5 foot. 5 foot herself, and it's just really weird. Like in our wedding photos, like, unfortunately I'm just tall enough that I ruin all photos. Like, and especially in me and my wife's wedding photos, in the studio, every single photo of me and my wife in the studio is either me sitting down, and so we're roughly on eye level, or she has a box underneath her dress. So it's just really weird. Like, we're going for a photo, then like we have to move from one location to the other. Oh, did you bring the box? And you got to run and get the box, and so she has to stand up on the box, and yeah. But no, I'm shortchanged because my dad was 6'8".
Wow.
And so all my uncles are about 6'1", 6'2", so I've got a little bit above them. But knowing that my dad was even taller, I feel like could have given me just a bit more of that genetics, because once you're 6 foot something, like, the idea of being 7 foot is like, even it's a bit like money. Once you get a bit of money, I want some more. It's like height. Once you get asked to reach something on the top shelf in the supermarket, it's like, this is power. This is
or
this is
looking
the whole
over
thing.
the top shelf, being able to see above the top shelf.
Yep.
I have to do that frequently, is ask people to get things down from the top shelf for me in grocery store, because I cannot reach the top shelf.
And I'm
Well,
167
I'd go shopping with you, Gran, and I'd reach the top shelf for you, okay?
in the other units, I'm 167 centimeters. So
Oh, okay. That's roughly average around. Yeah, that's... poor duck.
Yeah,
Wow.
Matt is definitely a small man.
No, but I was going to mention something, but no, I forgot my train of thought. But no, yeah, just being tall is just one of those things. So I suppose the impression I try and give is that I'm just this big cuddly guy who will sit down and have a chat with you and listen to you and be your friend. You know, I'm not here to slap you. I'm here to make you think, but I'm not here to slap you. Well, unless you say something really dumb, then I might, consider a few hands.
To have more people like, showing the different sides of atheism, like even me, like most of the content I make, like right now anyways, on TikTok, but it's sewing content. My name is still Kitty the Atheist, but I'm not actually, every now and again I'll talk about like politics and religion, but for the most part, I'm just showing, hey, I'm an atheist, but that's not all I am. I do this other stuff too.
Yep. And yeah, and I do like get into the dad stuff as well. There is an episode where I talk about one of the recurring series in my podcast is lessons from life, and I talk about just things that have happened. Like there was one time that I went for an interstate car trip, and my car broke down halfway there, and so me and the kids had to take a train back, and it was like hella awkward because I was looking forward to seeing all my friends and just how you handle that and just stuff like that. Well, we're going to get to dad jokes.
Yeah, we are. I wanted to bring up one more short issue, and that is
bring up more than one. I've got time, so that's cool.
Okay. What I do to get soda off the top shelf in the grocery store, because it's kind of in this little like cage thing. And when I say cage thing, what I mean is it's just got a metal bar to keep it from just falling off the shelf because the shelf is slightly tilted. And what I do is I can reach the bottom of the bottle, but I can't reach high enough to lift it out of the metal rack. So I push the bottom of the bottle up until it falls, and then I let go and I catch it.
Improvise,
that
adapt, overcome.
You are going to break your nose one of these days.
So I'm just quickly doing something for work.
Well, actually, one more thing before we get to that, and is we have discussed that you are tall, we have discussed that you are friendly, we have discussed that you are an atheist. So we have to ask about being a dad. How many kids do you have? 2. Okay. And how old
I have 2.
They?
Give me a sec.
Okay.
Yes, I have 2. My girl is almost 16, and my boy is almost 13. So
you look old enough to have a kid that old.
And no, I've never missed one because I'm right underneath it. It'll fall right into my arms. Anyway,
thank you. No, I'm in my mid 40s. My hair is dyed, so that might be why it just doesn't. My natural color is just like really bad mousy grey. But yeah, So 2 kids. So almost 16. She's busting to get her learner's permit.
Okay.
And I've said no. You can drive a Mario Kart for a few years. I will happily drive you everywhere. No, you are my little baby. I don't care if you're 30 and getting married. You are my little baby. And yeah, so that's so in high school, she'll be finishing. Actually, no, she actually starts uni next year. It's like, oh my god, yikes! There's that, and my son, he's 13. He's still obviously still growing up, but that's me. I'm a tall, friendly atheist dad.
Okay. So now we have to get to dad jokes.
I burp, I fart, I snore, I sometimes say inappropriate things. I even say dad jokes.
Okay. Tell us a dad joke.
Well, look, I'm really scared for the calendar. I think there's something wrong with the calendar.
What's wrong with the calendar?
Because its days are numbered. Its days are numbered.
I love.
Okay. At the very start of the show, Ox said he was grabbing his his blonde jokes, and I promised that I would tell my favorite blonde joke. And this
Okay.
is my favorite blonde joke. A blind man walks into a bar, and he asks the bartender, "You want to hear a blonde joke?" And the bartender says, "Since you are blind, I think there's a couple of things you better know before you tell your blonde joke." And the first is that I used to be the bouncer here, and I'm 6'5" and I weigh 300 pounds. And on your left are a pair of Hell's Angels, and they're both over 300 pounds apiece. And on your right are a pair of former linebackers, and all of us are blonde. Now, do you still want to tell your blonde joke? And the blind man says, "No, I don't want to have to explain the joke 5 times."
Rip that guy.
So, Kitty, your turn.
Okay, so there's a blonde in an expensive car driving down the road, and she sees another blonde in a wheat field in a rowboat. And she pulls the car over, and she was like, "Hey, bimbo, it's blondes like you that give blondes like me a bad name. If I knew how to swim, I'd come out there and kick your ass." And then how do you kill a blonde? Put a scratch and sniff sticker at the bottom of a pool.
So what was the first part of that?
How do you kill a blonde? Put a scratch and sniff sticker at the bottom of a pool.
How do you follow Will Smith in the snow? You follow the Fresh Prince.
Atheist God says to Kitty, "That was a Polish joke a long time ago." Yeah, when I was a kid, we all told Polish jokes. That was the big thing.
I've only heard it as a blonde joke.
I'm a little older than you guys.
Really? I didn't. That wasn't.
I'm the youngest woman in here. So.
Yeah, I've got kids older than Kitty. My hair is unusually dark for someone my age. This actually is my natural hair color. Okay. But my daughter, who is 31, has more gray hair than I do. I'm 60.
Okay. That's probably me then. I started going grey in my 20s, probably not long after I got married. And so my wife goes, "Why are you so grey?" It all started, it all started in 2003. It feels weird because next year
I was still in high school in 2003. So.
Oh gosh, I graduated high school.
I was class of 2005.
I graduated high school before she was born.
I was born in 1986. So.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I graduated in 79.
Oh, I was born in 79 myself.
Oh, so okay. So I graduated high school before you were born too, unless you were born before May.
No, that is it's amazing. It's really weird. But yeah, otherwise, I was going to plug my podcast for a couple of minutes, if I may.
I'm going to let you do that in just a minute. We've got a couple of jokes from the chat, and we're going to get to this, and then the last 5 minutes I always save for plugs.
Excellent.
Okay, so we have. How do you get a one-armed blonde out of a tree? Wave. Oh, that's great. That is fantastic. Who is emperor of all mice? Julius Caesar.
Oh, Matt, I hate you. Jesus Christ. Or I should say, Jesus Christ.
Okay, that one. Who's next? Give me more.
Okay, this is a hair color issue, not a joke. But transitioning has taken 10 years off my age. Hair on top of my head is still mousy brown, but my beard has completely gone gray. Completely gone gray.
Had.
Yeah. Let's see. Matt says, "What did the tectonic plate say when it bumped into its friend?" Sorry, my fault.
Matt, you are going to be a great dad with the worst dad jokes. Like, you're going to be an amazing father someday. But yeah, you're gonna embarrass the shit out of your kids with those dad jokes.
When my kids
That's-
were teens, I used to tell them that embarrassing them was part of my job.
Oh, it is. I say that's my daughter all the time. That's
My grandmother, my mom's mom, had a placard or whatever, like on the fridge, and it said, something like the goal is to live long enough to basically be a problem for your children,
right.
kind of like, 'cause
Yeah.
you put up with their shit, so like make them put up with yours.
Overprotected Atheist asks, how do you keep your blonde in the shower all day? Give them a shampoo that says rinse, wash, and repeat. That reminds me, Garfield went through a period where he was telling skinny jokes. And my favorite skinny joke was, how many skinny people does it take to fill up a shower?
How
I don't
many?
know. I don't know. Every time I try to find out, they keep slipping down the drain.
Sorry.
Okay. Purple says,
Sound effects, yeah.
Bigfoot is often mistaken for Sasquatch. Yeti never lets it bother him.
Yay. I've got a problem, guys. I only know 25 letters of the alphabet, and I don't know why. Dad jokes for the win.
My son came up to me with, what do you call a bear in the rain? And it's a drizzly bear.
Oh, okay. He's going to make a good dad one day. He
Yep,
knows the dad
he's getting
jokes.
he's getting the runs
He's
in
already
before we
he's
start.
already filling up his arsenal.
And Matt says, I made a video of me saying dad versions of science jokes for 4 minutes. I'm going to have to look for that one.
Yes, that would be
Okay. What's the most terrifying word in nuclear physics?
Oh.
Oops.
Well, it should be my finger slipped. That'll be another one as well.
Well, I mean, there was that one incident where the guy was using the screwdriver to hold the thing open, and he did slip, and it didn't go well for anyone involved.
No.
Okay, we are getting near the end of our time together. And so now, Damien, I'm going to give you a chance to plug your podcast and tell us what you have coming up.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So if you head on over to the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast is available on all good podcasting platforms and probably a few bad ones as well. Head on over to twitter.com/TF80pod. Head on over to the website www.tallfriendlyatheistdad.com. But if you want all the good stuff, head over to anchor.fm/TFADad. What's coming up? So this Sunday, reading Kent Hovind's PhD thesis part 1 comes out. Next 2 Sundays after that, it will be me and Internet Moses, the Prince of Meme-Gypt, discussing Christian memes. A couple of weeks after that, it will be me and Deborah Grace discussing crucifying the Bible. I've got about 60-something episodes so far, so if you want to go through my back catalogue, I discuss... What do I discuss? I discuss serial killers. I discuss cars breaking down. I discuss social media. I discuss... anything that happens to come to mind, I sometimes discuss it. I discussed my auntie dying last year. That was a pretty raw experience there. But no, episodes drop every 2 Sundays. So yeah, head on over to Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor. You'll find the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. There is a YouTube channel that I sometimes upload stuff as well, where I do read books. I'm going through I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Frank Turek. I'm going through Why I Hate Religion by Creflo Dollar. Total Life Prosperity by Creflo Dollar. Just trying to think what else I'm going through. I think I went through Letter to a Christian Nation by Sam Harris. There's a whole lot of... So yeah, go to YouTube, search for the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast, and you will hear my lovely, lovely voice telling you what to think.
It is a lovely voice.
It
Thank
is.
you.
It is. And the link to Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast is in the description. So if you are listening to this sometime in the future, just look in the description and that link is there. And if you are listening to it today and you're watching and you can see the chat, I just put the link in the chat as well if you want to copy that and get yourself subscribed so that you won't miss any episodes. And Kitty, what do you have going on?
So on Saturday, I forget which time the stream is, but this Saturday, Atheist Edge is doing his another one of his deductive reasoning streams, which I was on the last time he had one, and it was a lot of fun playing Sherlock Holmes, looking at pictures and trying to see what we can figure out about the person whose space it is. It was great. And then the next thing I have coming up is the next time I'll be on with you, Gigi, and I might toss out some TikToks here or there, but I've been mostly focusing on sewing lately. So
go ahead and plug what you've been sewing for.
Oh, yes. Diana, the lavender lady, needs a kidney transplant. And right now we are doing, this weekend, there is a charity auction for that to basically raise funds for the ancillary things around the transplant, because she needs somebody to be there for a carer for her to, after the surgery. And she, they will need money for gas to get to and from appointments, a place for them to stay, whatever is needed around that to just make it that much easier for her with this life-saving surgery. So it's an auction, and Purple rhymes with orange. She's been great about getting this. Same with Ben, he's been great getting this up and running, and I'm sure that Purple can toss some link to it in the chat.
Yes, please go ahead, Purple.
I have 5 items that I have sewn that I am donating to that auction, and all the money, all the proceeds, everything is going to the fund for Diana. And they're actually over there. There's actually a picture on my Twitter where I actually have all 5 of them on display. It's 3 of them are little travel pouches, zippered toiletry bags. One is a jumbo tote bag with lots of pockets, and then one is actually a crossbody purse. So yeah, definitely check that out this weekend, and hopefully we can raise some money to help somebody that really needs it. And hey, you get stuff out of it. It's not just a regular fundraiser, because this is an actual auction, so you're getting items, if that matters, because some people would prefer to get something for their donations, and hey, that's fine. Come on down.
I crocheted a trans flag scarf. It's a 6-foot long scarf. I haven't finished unraveling all of the fringe on it, but other than that, it's finished, and I sent a picture of it so that that can be auctioned off as well.
That must have gone down well in Alabama.
Oh, no, nobody's seen it here. I made it here at my house. It's sitting in my house. I made Kitty a scarf.
Yes.
And I made a trans flag scarf for Jenny Morgan.
Gigi, I just sent you the picture on Twitter of my 5 items if you wanted to put it up there so people can see. If not, that's fine. I just figured I'd have the option available. The scarf that she made me, it's got a little hood with little cat ears, and then the ends have little areas for your hands, almost like little cat mitten things. It's the most adorable scarf.
Cat mittens.
I know, it's so
I'm trying to get your picture up. It takes me a couple minutes.
That's cool. Fine. Like I said, I wanted to have the option there, for it.
There we go.
Okay, so yeah, the 3 things on the left-hand side are the zippered travel pouches. One is a Pride theme. One
I
is
want
Nightmare
the Star
Before
Wars
Christmas,
one. I'm bidding on the Star Wars one.
And then the one, the two bigger pictures. The bottom one is the tote. It's got elasticated pockets on the side, and it's got pockets on the front and more pockets on the inside. And then there's an actual purse made out of waterproof canvas and a snakeskin vinyl, and it's got a really pretty like rainbow zipper teeth and like a little rainbow zipper pull on it. And then an adjustable strap, so you can either wear it as a shoulder bag or as a crossbody bag.
Okay.
Nice.
Very good. Okay, and what I have coming up this week, my produced video is Ray Comfort. It's funny that he ended up coming up because that's who I'm doing this week is Ray Comfort.
What's he said now?
Well, he did a video about a woman being conned in church. Now, they actually call it being robbed, but yeah, there was a woman that an elderly woman goes into church, and these two younger women came in. One sat in front of her, one sat behind her, and the one in front of her asked to pray with her. And while she's holding her hands, the two that are closing their eyes, the one in back reaches in and grabs her purse.
Yep. Let me guess. Those nasty atheists keep on doing
No, he doesn't blame it on atheists, but I talk about, where was God?
Right?
Yes.
What's God up to? But anyway, and then I go through. He also has a guy on that I practically fell in love with this guy listening to Ray talk to him. I have no idea who he is. He's wearing a hat that says Sunstone, and in the video I ask if anybody knows who Sunstone is, please, tell him I would love to meet him. He's a really cool guy. So anyway, that's what's coming up on my show. And then next week, the live show is going to be another community building episode. So it's just going to be friendly discussion. Kitty will be on, and I'm not sure who else will be on at this point, but we'll have at least 4 people just for a time to talk and just socialize.
Sounds great.
Overprotected says that he wants she wants the Star Wars bag too.
It's a bidding war.
I was going to say, half these names I recognise. Like overprotected atheists. Yeah, I consider myself a good friend of hers. Rider for Life, Jax. Good friends with her. The name Purple Rhymes with Orange, I've seen that name around somewhere around before as well. It's so I didn't know how many friends you had, Godless Crone.
I have a good number.
I've noticed that. It's I feel insignificant coming on here. I've got my 3 friends, and you've got a bit more than that.
Well, Damien, thank you so much for coming. It was wonderful getting to know you. I really was interested in your story. I think the podcast that you have sounds like it is something that would be really well worth listening to.
I agree. Correct. Yes. And Kitty, good to meet you as well.
It was lovely meeting you.
And Kitty, as always, it is wonderful to have you on. You are such a great backup. If I run out of something to say, I need you to fill in while I'm doing something else. Technical gremlins. Yeah, last week I ran into some guest issues, so it is always wonderful to have Kitty in to give me a hand. And with that, thank you to everyone in the chat. You have been a wonderful audience. You've added some wonderful questions and some wonderful jokes. And, it's just been an enjoyable time. So thank you, everyone, and live your life.